Hi, my name is Dave Ford. I live in Riverview, New Brunswick. I became a Christian back in 1992 when I was at university, and I was baptised shortly afterwards. I was born and raised in England, and whilst I had a moral upbringing, I didn't have a Christian upbringing. I was mostly taken to church for Christmas, Easter and the occasional weddings. I didn't really understand what the church meant or what it was about. When I was at university, I was studying electronic engineering, and I didn't really take life too seriously. I did enough work to make sure I got a good degree, but I spent quite a lot of time just out at the pub with my friends and generally having a good time. After my main degree, I wasn't really sure what to do, and I ended up actually taking a one-year postgraduate course to become a teacher training course. And it was during that year that I started to really wonder a little bit about life and what it was about and what I should be doing with my life. During that year I spent quite a bit of time actually looking at different religions and had some conversations with a guy on my course who was a Christian. And towards the end of that year, I did start to worry, what was I going to do with my life? I was at a critical point. I was finishing university and I didn't want to get to age 80 and look back and think, that's how you're supposed to be living your life. I really had this feeling that as I was leaving university, I wanted to know the meaning of life, and I kind of wanted to know it before I embarked on my life proper, out of the education system and into the workplace. And I wanted to know it then, and I didn't want to get to 80 and then have a load of regrets thinking I'd lived my life the wrong way. At the time I had a couple of different options. I'd actually been offered to go a place to go back in to do a master's degree in engineering, to do artificial intelligence, back into electronic engineering, or I also had the opportunity of carrying on into teaching and going and becoming a full-time teacher. And I was really torn between these two things. I didn't know what to do, and I remember thinking to myself, well, what would the world do? What would the world suggest that I do? And the world's answer was obvious. It was go for the thing that makes the most money. Fortunately, about that time, I actually got in contact with an old classmate from high school who was at a different university, and they invited me to go and stay with them for the weekend, which I did, and we had a nice time. And on the Sunday morning, they said they were going to church, and I hadn't really thought they were a Christian or thought much about it, but I didn't have anything better to do, so I just said, yeah, okay, I'll come along. There's nothing else for me to do while you're at church. I'll just be hanging around waiting for you. So I went along to church. It was during that service that as the pastor spoke about Christianity and Christian values and all the things that the Christian faith teaches, that I felt something happening to me which I couldn't explain. It was like somebody had taken everything that I believed and put this big label across it that said Christianity, and I didn't know what to make of it. I started feeling hot under the collar, and it was like somebody was talking directly to me. And looking back, it's like God had reached in and just put his finger on me and called me. There's no other way to describe it really. I didn't really understand everything that was happening at the time, but I came out of that service knowing something profound had happened to me, and it had happened in a church. So the very next day I decided to try and open up a Bible and start reading, and I started at the beginning, and it's quite a big book, and I didn't really understand what it was saying or have anybody to explain it to me or talk it through with me. And so I was really kind of struggling with myself, trying to work out what had happened and what was going on. Like I said, I had the option to go back into teaching, and I had a few interviews lined up in different cities, and I needed to arrange accommodation and transport and a whole host of things that were on my plate to sort out that week. And here was me struggling to come to grips with what I'd just heard, and I had all these different pressures of things to sort out. And I remember very clearly that very afternoon, within the space of about half an hour, I had a series of phone calls, people calling me, get in touch with a couple of other people, and suddenly within about 20 minutes to half an hour of me really struggling on my first day as a Christian, it was like God had looked down on me and just waved his hand and made everything fall into place. I had trips arranged to all the interviews I was going to. The interviews were all arranged. I had accommodation arranged. and they were all sequentially arranged one after the other, so I could make all my interviews on all my trips and still be back to university for the remainder of my course, later in the week. And it was, like I said, it was just one of those things that just kind of blew me away, that within 20 minutes the whole situation had turned itself around. And that's the kind of thing that people will say is coincidence, but as you live and you learn to trust God and follow God, you see this kind of thing happen more and more as you put your trust in Him and He starts to act in your life. Now, what happened shortly after that is I got involved with the Christian Union at the university. People invited me in, and there was a sense of belonging and peace and welcoming that I'd never experienced before anywhere in the world. And that even though this was my last year of university, I was nearly at the end of it, I remember thinking, I wish I'd known these people 4 or 5 years ago when I started university, because it was such a peaceful, loving group. And it really kind of struck me in some ways that first thought was, these people aren't normal. People can't be this happy and peaceful. But it's true, they can. And that really struck home with me. In the following year, I moved to London. I started my first teaching job, and I had said in the back of my mind, I've just found out the meaning of life. I've just found out what my purpose is, and just met my God and started to appreciate who He is and what life's about. And I said, I don't want to have any relationships or get involved with anybody for a year. Just want to keep my mind clear and focus on what's important. But it seemed the Lord had other ideas, and I actually met, through again a strange series of coincidences, my future wife Anne, who I met in London, and we got on so well. It was kind of impossible to deny that the Lord had brought us together. We were engaged and married within a year, and we're still married now 20 something years later on. She'll tell me off for not remembering exactly how many years. And we have 4 children, and God has been so good to us and watched over us in all that we've done. And all I can say is that if you do wonder what life is about and what it's for, then look to the church and find a good church, or find a Christian friend that you know, and ask them, what is the meaning of life? What am I here for? Where am I going? And what's it all about? And when God opens your eyes to the world around you and adopts you as His son and brings you into His family, you will never see the world the same again. You see things that you've never seen. You experience things you'll never experience, and you have a peace in your heart that will just transcend everything that you could possibly ever have believed. And so don't leave it too late. If you want to know what life's about, open a Bible, go to church, and find out. Thanks very much for watching.